Hello, investors. This is Ted Zhang, portfolio manager at Revere Asset Management. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 5:22 p.m. coming to you from Fort Lauderdale with tonight's Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. State in the market, short-term uptrend, fall-through days, April 22nd and 23rd. Looking at the GROTECTION gauge, market leaders are acting well, extremely resilient after a gap down today. So we still are there with the bullish green arrow. Major indexes are above the 21 EMA, and therefore we have a short-term uptrend as well. And today, after today's resilient action, we added the yellow sub-arrow for the medium-term trend as the NASDAQ is gapping above the 50-day moving average after hours on Microsoft and Meta earnings reactions. And the NASDAQ is also above the 10-week moving average. So we are looking at that there. If the S&P does turn up as well, we will likely move that to neutral. What happened today? Bulls stayed resilient as the economy contracts. 21 over 21 list up 0.60%, 11 up, 3 sideways, 6 down. And we have to take off WGS because it would have skewed the 21 over 21 data too much as it gapped down on earnings and closed down 40%. So that is a huge down move, and you can see what type of these high octane stocks can do when it is time to correct or when they miss on earnings. Big 8 down 0.68%. Meta Microsoft earnings reactions happen after the close, and we will go over that during the tail of the tape or later. RGA is down 0.41%, S&P up 0.15%, and up another 0.56% after hours. Equal weighted up 0.14%. Qs down 0.01%, but in after hours up 0.99%. Last time I checked, and we will go over that in real time as well. QQEW up 0.09%, Dow Jones up 0.35%, mid caps down 0.16%, small caps down 0.63%, global 60/40 equity bonds up 0.02%, protection down 0.05%, and turbo down 0.21%. So jumping right into the charts of the S&P 500, it's the NASDAQ. You can see what happened today. We saw a contraction in GDP, and that came in minus 0.3% for the quarter versus 0.4% expected. So that's the first quarter of contraction. We also saw much lower than expected ADP employment data, 62,000 versus 120,000. And that initially led to over 1% gap down. Within 30 minutes, we put in the lows, and we pretty much had a trend up day, really just even breaking previous high of the day into the 50-day moving average and on elevated volume as well. So this is definitely a good accumulation sign in the market. It's held the 21 EMA as well, which is rising. Now we're up into the 50-day, and this will be key. And the great action is that in the last 6 days, we've seen a wall of blue volume. So sellers for now have definitely dried up. And yeah, so the declining 50 will remain a key level of resistance here. RSP, give me 1 second. Market surge is lagging here. RSP down actually 0.34% after hours, while up 0.14%. Similar action, gap down, supported at the 21 EMA, and close at the highs. However, declining 50 above as well. The NASDAQ undercut, reclaimed yesterday's lows, held the 21 EMA, and closed right at the 50-day, declining 50-day moving average. Now after hours, it's gapping up to 480, so back above the 50, but we are going to contend with the declining 200-day moving average as well as the 493.62 level. QQEW, also similar action and closed right below the 50-day. Dow Jones, similar as well, undercut, reclaimed the 21 EMA, closed highs of the day. Mid caps, similar action too, undercut, reclaimed the 21, closed highs of the day, and we're continuing to flag here with the declining 50-day moving average above. Russell, undercut, reclaimed the 21. You can see a theme today. Oftentimes, all these indexes will move in lockstep. Undercut, reclaimed the 21 EMA, closed highs of the day with the 50-day above. The VIX closed at 24.7. Initially started spiking on the gap down, got rejected, which is good to see. And we want to see the VIX or volatility index continue to drop below 20. and that could definitely give us more confidence in a smoother uptrend in this rally. The dollar tries to rally, but it's kind of just meandering about here under the $100 area. The longer it takes to reclaim 100, the more bearish it becomes for the dollar. Gold continues to flag sideways here above a rising 21 EMA after one of the highest volume sell candles, bearish engulfing candles in a while. So we're watching the situation develop. No strong opinions here. Gold miners finding support getting extremely tight at the 21 EMA and draw this little triangle or flag. Volume has dried up in it as well. We'll see which direction this resolves. Silver crashed, rallied on lower volume, and it's just going sideways here. The more it goes sideways, the more confidence I will have that silver is potentially done correcting and just building a sloppier handle on the right side. Bitcoin, I will quickly go to trading view, building a nice little handle here as the moving averages untangle 10, 20, 50, 150, 200. And then on the weekly time frame, we really want to see the red line 10-week get back above the 20-week before we can really determine or have confidence that Bitcoin is ready for another run up. So you can see all the big moves happen where the key moving averages are aligned 10, 20, 30, and 40 are aligned. So I definitely expect Bitcoin to need more sideways action, but IBIT is starting to get that full moving average alignment here. But you can see the 10 is still below the 20 as well. So we're waiting for that. Bonds, failed breakout, failed breakdown, like I've commented on before. And now bonds are starting to perk up again, back above the 200-day. And this is good because it's putting pressure on yields. And like what we talked about before, the U.S. government has $6 to $7 trillion in debt maturing this year that needs to be refinanced and hopefully at much lower rates. TLT similar action as well, failed breakdown so far. And 30-year continues to come down. 10-year is coming down as well, and that is a good sign. So that is it for the inter-asset correlation. Now onto the tail of the tape, and this is where we get to all the news events and the earnings reactions today. So starting off, seeing that fear and greed dropped a little bit at 34, still at fear. We're operating under the bull case now, initiated a rally above the 21 EMA on 424. News, we started off the day with, like I talked about, the ADP US April private employment. That rose only 62,000 versus an estimated 115,000. So the labor market is slowing down. And we also got GDP, which showed a contraction in the Q1 economy. When we look deeper into the numbers of GDP, I'll put it on the screen here. These are the contributions to percent change of real GDP. And as always, GDP is calculated by consumer spending, so consumption, plus investment, plus government spending, plus net exports. So that's exports minus imports. And because imports were significantly higher than exports, that puts downward pressure on GDP. And that led to a contraction in Q1. So we'll see that distortion is fixed in Q2. But as always, the tariffs have not necessarily taken effect yet because that happened in April after Q1. And so perhaps people were front running the tariffs and importing as many goods as they possibly can into the United States before Trump put on the recent tariffs. With that, we have big tech earnings. Microsoft and Meta both beat and raised, which is really positive for earnings season and for the stock market. Meta reported $6.43 versus estimated $5.25, revenue $42.3 billion, estimated $41.3 billion. Microsoft saw $70 billion revenue, estimated $68 billion, and earnings came in at 3.46 and earned estimate 3.22. And both of them, last time I checked, were up, and we will definitely go over those two charts. Qualcomm also saw revenues at 10.8 billion versus 10.6 billion, earnings 2.85 versus estimated 2.8. So tomorrow we have Apple and Amazon after the close as well. Also some manufacturing data during the day too. Today's keys, we're looking at the S&P and the NASDAQ versus 21 EMA, which we held perfectly. Closed below the 50, but the NASDAQ is gapping above the 50. And if that holds tomorrow, that will be another positive constructive day. S&P versus support 5,500, we undercut and reclaimed that. Leaders acted strong as well. And then good earnings reactions so far and on data. Day count up 5 to up 6. 6 days above the 8 EMA. 5 days above the 21 EMA. Short-term expectations are positive. What happened today? Like I talked about, we gapped down, rallied the rest of the day, closing green. Strong sectors, bond prices were up as bond yields were down. Dollar was up, healthcare, industrial staples, biotech and pharma, gold miners, silver miners, and semis. Oil and gas were down with contracting economy. Same with commodities. ARK, growth tech was down, and Bitcoin was down, pulling back today. Grow, RVAB 0.62, rebar minus 2.6%, and we trimmed QLD today. In Turbo, we sold CoreWeave and we bought some Mexico, which I'll talk about as well, up 0.51%. Sorry, beta 0.51%, open heat 3.01%. The bottom line is bulls stay resilient as the economy contracts. In Thursday's keys, we're watching the S&P and the NASDAQ versus 21 EMA and the 50-day, S&P versus support 5,500 and the 50-day. Leaders continue to act well, and then more data, more economic data, and more earnings reactions after the close. So that is it with the tail of the tape. Let's go over Meta. After hours up 4.5%. Undercut reclaim to 21 EMA. Now we're gapping to 573. So this is going to be key because we're right into the flattening 200-day moving average and declining 50. We don't want to see mega caps reject their 50 and 200-day moving averages and continue and roll over into a further downtrend. That would definitely not be good for the markets. Microsoft, undercut reclaim the 50-day moving average, so even stronger. 21 is looking to hook up here. And now we're gapping up 5.65%, 417. So Microsoft's actually currently gapping up above its 200-day moving average and 150-day moving average, which is quite constructive. And Meta also announced they're going to increase their midpoint CapEx expense up 9%. And that is benefiting NVIDIA as well, up 3.6% to 213, which is really right at the 50-day moving average. So that will be a key level as well. As always, NVIDIA has seen deceleration in earnings and sales and gross margins. So people are eating into their lunch. They can't sustain that 100% plus growth rate infinitely, especially at the rate they've grown and at the scale they're already at. So that is big tech news there. For Mexico, or for CoreWeave, we decided to get rid of this because we broke above 44.5 and 45 and the 21 EMA, squatted completely, shook out those lows, so we decided to close that position. All the smoother trends happen when EMA is above the 21 EMA. So we'll look to get a re-entry. This is up 6% now after hours off the Meta earnings news since they're a GPU as a service company at 43.96 now. So we'll see what happens there, and can always re-enter, but we have to manage risk in real time. EWW is Mexico, and pretty much the buy was this horizontal stage 2 breakout line. We retested it today, undercut, reclaimed it, and put in the oops reversal. So we gapped down, bought it through this 5-minute opening range break, and then it really just had nice action the rest of the day. And the thesis for Latin America is that there's a shift, because of the tariffs, there's a shift from the eastern side of the world to the western side for suppliers. A lot of American companies are moving their supply chains to the Western Hemisphere, to Latin America, to South America. And there seems to be a conservative shift in many of the governing countries, which is favored by the free markets, less regulation, less taxes, and there's an inflow of investment abroad. So that is the thesis for Latin America, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil. This is exiting a stage 4 decline. You can see below the 10, 20, 30, 40 weekly moving averages. As we've talked about multiple times in stage analysis, you can see it started from a failed breakout, broke down, spent really over a year in stage 4. Then the rate of change of the downtrend decelerated, declined. It based sideways, gave time for the 10, 20, 30, and 40 week to catch up, flatten, and now we're back above all weekly key moving averages, and this is back into a new stage 2 uptrend. The same here is for Brazil. I do like Mexico more, but Brazil looks decent too, back in the stage 2 uptrend. Argentina has been an uptrend ever since Milei took office, like a year or 2 years, like a year ago, but it's putting in really nice base once again. Not sure it's a late stage base, but it looks great as well. So let's now dive into the 21 over 21 list or 20 over 21 list because we took out WGS, which got nuked on earnings. Market didn't like it. Closing up new 52-week highs and closed down 43% today. So this is officially done with this move. Slice 10, 20, 30, 40-week moving averages and look out. This could head much, much lower as the move started around $2 a share. So let's go over from top to bottom. Let's just go over the top six or seven biggest winners and the top losers. Spotify was a big winner today. Undercut reclaiming the 50 and 21 back to this midpoint double bottom base area. So this is definitely on watch. Even though the earnings decelerated significantly, only 11% growth, 50% growth. Gross margins did grow, and the chart looks great as well. TGTX continues to make a new high. This was a relative strength name we've been talking about, a multiple sclerosis drug that helps that devastating autoimmune disorder where the body attacks nerve cells. It could really lead to paralysis, brain damage, and more. And they have triple-digit earnings and sales last quarter, and they have earnings in 6 days, so that'll be critical. Palantir is extremely resilient, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days. Relative strength, new highs as well. Wall of blue accumulation, earnings in 5 days. Uber, another just tremendously acting stock, undercut, reclaimed, or held the 77.58 level previous resistance turned support, and we made a higher high. This 82.1 area is the final resistance really for me, as far as I'm concerned, in this 1 year base. And we have earnings in 7 days that can propel it to a new all-time high. And that's what we're looking for. Take two breaks out 5 days up in a row. That is great action. And this is why we're saying that the leaders are acting well. With Spotify staying resilient, TGTX up 5, 6 days into new highs, Palantir up 5 to 7 days, Uber staying resilient and climbing to almost new highs. Take two breaking out up 5 to 6 days. Zscaler breaking out of this huge base as well. Cybersecurity is definitely a theme to watch, up 5 days. And then on the downside, LNG, natural gas, gaps down. PEN pulls back to the top of the double bottom base breakout. Bitcoin's just consolidating. Perfect action right now. I wouldn't even be surprised if we pull back to 50-50, and that would be an add pullback spot. As you can see, volume is perfect. The up move, big volume, contraction, tightness on lower than average volume. CRS down less than 1%, just kind of flagging here. And then hood. I don't know what's going on in market search here. But finally, we'll cover hood. Flagging here up a little over 3% at $51 on this earnings as well. So that is going to wrap it for today's video. An eventful day. Bulls are extremely resilient, and we have more data and earnings tomorrow. That said, if you're interested in Revere, please email me at ted@revereasset.com. You can also email Dan and Don at revereasset.com. My Twitter or X is TedHZhang. You can DM me and interact with me there. I post a lot as well. Our phone is 855-REAL-WEALTH. That is 855-732-5932. And our website's Revere Asset, and our YouTube is Revere Asset as well. That being said, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Wednesday, April 30th. Now it's 5:41 p.m. This is Ted Zhang, portfolio manager, telling it like it is. Thanks for listening, and have a great rest of your day.